Getting to MIT, I realized that I was no longer the smartest person around, not by any stretch. Like, there's smart people, and then there's smart people. It's also made me realize that being smart isn't good enough to being successful. I have so many acquaintances, even some friends, that are actually smarter than me. I can tell. I've been around them. I've seen how they look at problems and understand different things, and whether it was math or engineering or science, they were actually smarter than me. But their unwillingness to work at it hard in a thoughtful manner. So that working hard in a thoughtful manner, meaning I knew what I was looking for, and when I didn't know what I was looking for, I knew that I was searching to find what I was looking for. So every step along the way, I was always along that path. Okay, I know what I like, I know that I'm interested in that, and that's what I want to do. But that working harder outdid a lot of people that were smarter than me. But it wasn't simply working hard, it was working hard with a focus that I was going to get out of it. And that keeps coming back time and again. But what I realized in that kind of nerd hierarchy that I went up is that going to school and getting an engineering degree, I realized, oddly so, I didn't want to be an engineer. So here I am getting a degree in electrical engineering. I'm in my junior year of college, and it's like, you know what? I really don't want to do this engineering thing anymore. And so then it started for me a search to saying, well, what can I do? What do I like? I like talking and engaging with people. I like being social. The problem with being a developer, as we would call it, or what most engineers ultimately become, is they sit in front of a terminal and they write software. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's a lot of people that love that sort of thing. They like the idea of the problem, the solving, the challenging, building something new. Almost everything that you guys probably use and like. I'm assuming a good majority of you are big Facebook users. Probably a lot of you even use Twitter a little bit, or you use Instagram, or just go down the list of different things. Those were all built by some engineer sitting in some dark room in front of a computer terminal typing away. Pounding away at it. So I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but it wasn't for me. And what I realized at that point is that I wanted to find something different, so that's basically exactly what I did. As I started searching, and I realized there's this kind of role that you can run inside of a technology company where you have an engineering understanding, but your job is more about figuring out or trying to guess what people are going to be interested in buying at some point in the future. And that's where I made my career. It took me from MIT in Boston, then I lived in Northern Virginia, just outside of Washington, D.C. for a while. We lived in Canada for a while, just outside of Ottawa, Ontario, and then we moved to Silicon Valley in 1995. And through basically 5 different companies, some of them successful, some of them not, which really brings me probably getting toward the back end of this part of the conversation, is that you are generally not going to be defined by your failures, but you're going to be defined by your success. So your willingness to fail will actually help you a huge amount. So understand that what you can get out of your success in your life is not necessarily defined by your failures. Your failures were just opportunities to learn. I've had arguably 2 companies that really didn't play out well. One was a complete failure. Started it, tried to raise money, couldn't do it, and then it failed. But for me, ultimately there were some times when I kept at it, did it a different way, and learned from that failure, and then found something else that made it a success. So, and I think you're going to find something very similar in that regard. So I'll bring you to the end. I'm going to wrap that part up for you, which is basically recognize that you have a limited amount of time. Create some good habits. Be willing to work hard, but work hard in a directed way, where you're doing it for a reason. You're not just simply working hard, but you're doing it to learn something. If you don't know what you're interested in doing with your life, then you're working hard to figure out what you want to do. Once you've figured out what you want to do, then you're working hard at that. And then when that stops being what you want to do, you're now working hard to figure out the next thing that you want to do. And that you're constantly doing that, and you're just living that dynamic again and again. So let me pause there, and I'm just going to take a leap forward and highlight something that the world that you're going to grow up in, that you're going to raise your children in, that you're going to grow old in, is going to be very different than the world that I grew up in. And I can't emphasize this enough for you, because I think the opportunities for you here are very different than the opportunities for me. So the opportunities for me dictated that I had to move to places. In order to be successful in the kind of businesses I did, I had to move out of here, go to another location, because that's really only where the opportunities could have bound themselves. But here, in this day and age, the internet is going to fundamentally disrupt every aspect of life. We are at literally the 1% point of how the internet is going to change things. 1%. I know you think I'm not exaggerating, or you think I'm exaggerating a little bit, but almost everything you understand. My belief is 20 years from now, school the way that you did it will no longer exist. The idea of teachers sitting in front of a classroom at a whiteboard or at a chalkboard and lecturing the students, and then you get your homework assignments and you got to go home and do your homework, I think is fundamentally going to be ripped apart by the internet. And what you're going to see, and you're already seeing the beginnings of that in various parts of the world, you're seeing this idea of what's called the flipped room. And I'm only doing this as an example because all of you will get this. And what you're going to see, and I actually have been to schools now that have exactly that, the teachers no longer lecture. So what happens is the students, the homework is they go home, they get on their iPad, they get on their computer, and they listen to lectures. And then maybe it's their teacher, maybe it's some other person that's done that lecture. And this is all the way from elementary school all the way up through high school. It's not indicative of any one area, all the way up through college. And then what you do when you come into the classroom is you actually do your homework in school. And the dynamic with the teacher is they're more a tutor, a mentor. And I think what you're going to see is education in the same way that it's happened to music. I don't know, when's the last time anybody here's bought a CD? Anybody recently? A little bit? You're kind of showing you're getting old if you're buying CDs. Too easy to buy online. So that's completely changed the industry. The music industry, the book industry, television entertainment. It's actually required now for an entertainer to earn a living, they must go on tour. It used to be the other way around. That the way an entertainer made their money, I cut a record, I put it out, the firm puts it out, I make all my money off of record royalties. It's completely changed that industry, and it's just beginning to, completely, it's going to continue to change it. And I would argue that if I were searching for opportunity now, I would step back as an individual and realize, hey, what else is the internet going to change? What else is it going to change? When you think about how the internet's going to get delivered, through my phone, through through the computer, through different ways that I get things, all these kind of new applications and thoughts. And there's opportunities for you here, or whether you choose to live somewhere else and really pursue those things. But the internet, it's really out of those situations where fundamental aspects of our society shift that you get great opportunity to create big success. And that for me is really, I've been a little bit lucky, but also some insight in recognizing that kind of shift in the internet and what's taking place. I was very early in that stage, but I would argue to you that it's just the beginning of the change. So the thing that I want to leave you with in understanding as you think about the future is, along with this idea that you've got a limited amount of time, there's one little last piece of advice I'll leave you, is that life is not fair. So it's just not fair. And you can wake up every morning and you can blame your parents, you can blame your sister or your brother or your teacher or the bad luck or the weather or the house that you live in or what you're doing right now, or that you've got some other challenge in your life, and I'm just going to tell you it's just not fair. But if you go in with the attitude that the reason I'm not successful in doing what I want to do is because of fill in the blank. The way, maybe it's the way I dress, or maybe it's what my parents taught me, or maybe it's I was treated unfairly. And I'm not saying that some of you haven't lived incredibly difficult things. But when you're going to wake up, and if you ever accept the reality, which is it's just not fair, and that I'm the only one that can control my destiny or my fate, and that recognize, too, that the internet has created an opportunity that I can gain access through that to something that was way beyond anything that your parents were able to gain access to. That you have opportunities that are orders of magnitude, 10, 100, 1,000 times greater possibilities that you can pursue. And there is no excuse for you. There is literally no excuse for you. It's up to you. And so, the thing I leave you with is that recognize that life's not fair. Try not to get hung up on it. Stop worrying about whether Joe or Sally or Sam or whomever's gotten whatever, or they've got a nicer house or better parents or they're more athletic or like I said, fill it in. It's just, life's not fair. You're going to get discriminated against. I guarantee it. In one form or another. Some of it may be because of the way you dress. Some of it may be because of the color of your skin. Some of it may be the way you behave or act. It won't matter. In some form or another, everybody gets discriminated against. Some much worse than others. I'm not going to argue that. And the point is, you can wake up and say, I'm not going to be successful because they won't let me be successful. They won't let me do it. It's their fault. And I would tell you that if you go in with that attitude and what you're doing, then I guarantee you will not be successful. If you feel that sense of, I'm being punished. But because of the internet, I would argue that the accessibility of things that you can use as a person to make yourself better, smarter, more knowledgeable, more aware, do research and find things, there's just really not an excuse. And I would challenge you as students right now that there's just huge opportunities for you. No matter what you want to pursue in life, whether your goal here is to graduate, you're going to get married, you're going to raise a family, huge opportunities for you. There's things that you can do, whether it's to go off and work, whether you want to be an engineer or a scientist or run an office, or whether you want to become a pastor. I think even the way church is delivered is going to get changed by the internet. I think we're going to see different ways that faith is going to get expressed and dealt with. And I think in every way you're going to see things change. There's just huge opportunity for you guys. Huge opportunity. So with that, as I say, thus endeth the lecture.